Good morning, students, and welcome back to another session of quantity surveying and contract management, wherein we were dealing with analysis of rates. So, in this session, we will start from plastering and pointing and learn how to analyze the rates of various item of works. Coming to plastering and pointing. So 12 mm thick has been given. 12 mm thick, what? 12 mm thick cement plaster of 1:6. So ratio has been given to us on new brickwork. Okay. So what we usually adopt? Usually adopt 100 square meters, 100 square meters as the work to be carried out. Okay. And as usual, we can calculate the volume of wet mortar, right? Volume of wet mortar. Then adding 20% extra what for your unevenness of the surface. Adding 20% extra. Then after that, what you have to do? You have to add 1/3 extra for the volume of dry mortar. To get the volume of dry mortar, you have to increase it by 1/3. So I've told you, when you're dealing with concrete, you have to increase it by 54% or 50%. You have to increase the wet volume, you have to increase to get the dry volume. Okay. Similarly, when you are dealing with mortar, remember you have to increase from 30 to 40%. In between you can increase. When you are dealing with mortar, right, the wet volume you have to increase by this percentage to get the dry volume. Okay, so now we are dealing with mortar, hence we will adopt adding 1/3 extra. That is 33%, correct? 1/3 is 33, I hope. Okay, then okay, after adding dry volume, so the total volume of your mortar is 1.92, correct? And if you recall, if you want to get the cement quantity, what you have to do, you have to divide this particular volume by the summation of the ratio. So the ratio they have given is 1:6. So the summation of this is 1 plus 6, that is equal to 7. So divide it by 7, this particular volume, you will get in cubic meters the amount of cement. So this is the same steps which you have followed previously. And if you divide this particular number by 0.0347, right? 347, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. If you divide by this number, you will get it in bags, the quantity of cement in bags. Similarly, if you multiply this 2.274 cubic meters by the ratio of your sand, if you multiply that by 6, you will get the cubic meter quantity of sand. Okay, so that is done. You can just write down all the materials here. Materials quantities are written. Then one more important thing, do not forget to add scaffolding. Don't forget to add scaffolding. It is a lump sum quantity which is taken as lump sum. Okay, then labors, we know how to add labors, I've told you. Okay, and you can calculate the per square meter rate of plastering work in cement mortar 1:6. Okay, then similarly here you can see we have 6 mm thick cement plaster. The only difference here is 6 mm thick. The previous one was 12 mm thick, and here it is in ratio 1:3. The previous one was 1:4. The same steps you can follow. And the important thing here is scaffolding. Don't forget to add scaffolding in this particular work. Okay, so this is also the same thing. You can see here plastering work, plastering with cement mortar 1:6, but it is 20 mm thick, right? 20 mm thick. Same thing, same process you have to follow to calculate the rate per square meter. In this particular problem here, you can see it is also the same thing. 12 mm thick cement mortar in 1:3 ratio, 1:3 ratio, that is cement is to sand. Okay, so the steps I have explained to you, the same steps you can follow, and you can calculate the rate per square meter. Now coming to pointing, we have learned regarding plastering. Now we have to learn regarding pointing. Here you can see this is regarding pointing in cement mortar 1:3. Cement mortar 1:3 on brickwork on walls. Okay. So assume 100 square meters, a very important assumption is 100 square meters. Now calculation of materials. Calculation of materials for 1:3. If you go through the previous year numericals, we have done for 1:3. So the volume of dry mortar that is required is 0.63 cubic meters. Okay, similarly, you can convert it to the quantity of cement in bags and the quantity of sand in cubic meters. Right, as we have followed the previous steps, same thing you can follow and calculate the cement and sand quantities. Okay, once you're done with that, you can prepare the table, add the scaffolding. Don't forget to add scaffolding as lump sum quantity, and then calculate the rate in per square meter. No problem. So what we have done here, you can see is we have written down a table for materials required for cement plastering with different proportions. Right? If it is a 12 mm thick and it is in the ratio 1:4, then you require this amount of cement or this amount of bags of cement and this cubic meters of sand. Okay, so this is just for reference, no need of remembering any of these things. You can easily calculate all of these things. Okay, similarly, if you have a 20 mm thick plaster for various ratios, you can see they have made a table for the quantities that are required of cement and sand. Okay. So after this, next thing that we have to look into is whitewashing, color washing, and painting. Whitewashing, color washing, and painting. I hope you recall whatever we have learned in specification regarding whitewashing, color washing, and painting. Okay. So a thumb rule here that you can follow is 1 kg or 1 liter of cement, of a paint. Right, 1 kg if it is in powdered form. Right, sometimes paint is given in powdered form. Right, for especially for whitewashing. Then at that time you have to mix it with water. Right, and then prepare your whitewash. So if it is given in kg, then you can assume 1 kg, or if it is in liters, you can assume 1 liter. So 1 kg or 1 liter of paint or powder will give you, it will allow you to paint 10 square meters of surface. It will allow you to paint 10 square meter of surface. This thumb rule you can remember, very important. Okay, so it will help you in preparing your analysis of rates. So now the first thing that we will learn is whitewashing one coat on a coat of primer to new plaster. Okay, we have been given to calculate or to do the rate analysis of whitewashing in one coat. Okay, we have to do only one coat. Okay. So the materials required for whitewashing, we know it is lime, right? White lime, which is usually in powdered format, right? White lime, which is usually in powdered format. So as I've told you, for 10 square meters, for 10 square meters, we require 1 kg. For 10 square meters, we require 1 kg. For 100 square meters, how much we will require for 100 square meters? It will be 10 kgs, right? 10 kgs following this particular thumb rule. Following this particular thumb rule. So you can see it is around 11 kgs. No need to worry. You can add some amount for wastage, right? You can consider some amount of wastage and all those things, and you can keep it as 11 kgs. Okay. Now glue powder is required, right? Glue powder we add into that mixture so that it is properly binded and it can be applied on the wall. So that, and this blue pigment color, any pigment color which you want to add, so you can write those down in lump sum and add that particular rate or the amount in your total. Okay. In labor section here, you can see we need a painter and we need one helper. Okay, we can keep it as 1, or if you recall exactly, you can keep it as 0.75. So you can keep it as 1, no problem. Okay, your analysis will increase by a certain value. Okay, it might go to 7, it might go to 8. No problem. Your answer is not wrong, but it should be approximately in this particular range. Okay, so we need one helper and one painter for 100 square meter of painting or whitewashing. Okay, whitewashing we are concerned with. So for 100 square meters, remember we require one painter and one helper. Okay, so this is how you can do for whitewashing. Similarly, now coming to whitewashing for 2 coats. So in the previous one we had studied that was only for 1 coat. But here you can see we are dealing with 2 coats of whitewashing. Okay, so the same thing, but you can see the previous one was 11 kgs, right? Quantity was 11 kgs. Here you can see because we are applying 2 number of coats, so 11 into 2, we have got the total quantity that is required is 22 kilos. Okay, and the painter and helper in the previous one that were required were 1 in number. Here you can see it is multiplied by 2 because we have to apply 2 coats, hence 2 over here instead of 1. Okay, so the remaining quantities are same. Okay, moving on to the next thing, color washing. You can see the next thing that we are dealing with is color washing. Color washing 2 coats with washable distemper to interior walls or ceiling with coat of primer. Okay, now we are doing color washing with 2 coats. Remember, it is 2 coats. Okay, so 100 square meters, 100 square meters. Okay, so the thumb rule that I had told you is what? 1 liter, 1 liter, 1 liter for 10 square meters. So here we are required to paint a surface of 100 square meters. So we will require what? 10 liters, right? Approximately 10 liters of paint, 10 liters of paint. So here you can see in material calculation, we have written it as 8 liters, right? So you can remember for distemper, it is lesser because distemper can spread compared to a normal paint, it can spread to a larger area. So we require lesser amount of paint. Okay, and then to paint, we need some brushes. We need some putty, sandpaper for making the surface smooth, right? We fill it with putty. We make it smooth by using by rubbing it with sandpaper. We need brushes for painting. So all those things can be kept under lump sum, and you can add appropriate rate, appropriate amount for this particular brushes. So these are old rates wherein you can see only 50 rupees has been written. You can write the latest rates. And it is not 50 rupees, it will be higher than this. Then coming to labor, as we have told you, we require painter and we require helpers. Okay. Then coming to top coat. Coming to top coat, because we have to do 2 coats, right? 2 coats. So 1 coat we have written, that is the base coat. Primer coat we have done with distemper. Next, coming to top coat. Coming to top coat, you can see, as I've told you, for 10 square meters, 10 meters square, we require 1 liter, right? Similarly, for 100 square meters, we require 10 kgs of distemper, 10 kgs of distemper. Okay. Then similarly, you can add for lump sum quantities and then labor. Okay, you can see here for distemper primer, you require lesser amount of labor, but here you require large amount of labor. You can see it is almost double. Painters that are required are doubled, but helpers are almost same. Okay. Then coming to the next quantity, decorative waterproofing. This is not important. We shall skip on this particular thing. Then moving on to wall painting. Wall painting. Okay. Wall painting, 2 or more coats with plastic emulsion paint. Okay. So the quantity is 10 square meters, right? Remember the thumb rule, 1 liter will give you 10 meter square of surface area, painting surface area. So 100 square meters, you can see it is around 12, right? So that thumb rule will help you for this particular quantity calculation. Okay, so the remaining things you can read, it is the similar things, all the things are same. You can see it is easy compared to other quantity calculations, right? Material calculation, right, like in your concrete and your cement and your mortar, all those things can be skipped in this particular painting work. You can see you can directly prepare the table, no need of any material calculation. Okay, so then painting with 2 coats, all these things are also similar to the previous one. You can read and you can go through, all the things are same, self-explanatory, no problem. Okay, then here also you can see painting 1 coat of old. So when you are dealing with iron work, right, here it is a different thing. It is not wall painting. It is not wall painting. It is painting of old woodwork or old iron work. We are dealing with painting of old wooden work or old iron work. So we have to give only one coat of paint, and the surface area that we have assumed is a 100 square meters. Sorry, it is 100 square meters. So whenever you are dealing with old paint, right, painting of old surfaces, lesser amount of paint is required. Hence, you can see instead of 10, which is our thumb rule, right, which your thumb rule, instead of 10 liters, you can see the paint that you require here is lesser. 7.5 liters is required for painting of 100 square meters. Okay. Then we require materials like putty for filling holes and cracks, right? Filling holes, cracks, and any undulations and any bumps. You have to fill it with putty, and all those extra things are required. So we can consider that under lump sum. Okay, so this is for iron work or old woodwork. Okay, so this is regarding paint. Now, once we are done with paint, now we have to look into quantity calculation of timber. Okay, timber calculation for your doors and windows. Material calculation for doors and windows. Very important. Okay, so I hope paint and all those things are clear. So shall we move on to the material calculation of wooden work, woodwork required for door and windows, and then learn how to do an rate analysis for per you can see per door. You can see here this analysis is done. It is all calculation is done, and the final answer you can see is done. Rate analysis here it is done. You can see per square meter for one door for a door. Okay, so shall we move on to door and windows? If painting work and plastering, pointing, painting, color washing, all those things are clear, shall we move on to the next thing under rate analysis? Shall we move on to doors and windows? Analysis
Yes,
of doors
sir.
and windows? Okay, okay, okay. So the main thing that you have to remember here is the different parts of a door, which we have learned in specifications, right? So I will tell you what are the different parts. So the things that are written in F, right, they are nothing but part of a frame, part of the frame. So this part, and here also see, you can see F, capital F is written. So this part is also the part which comprises of your frame. So this part is what is your door frame, right? Door frame. So your door frame comprises of the horn, which is over this part. This part is called your horn. And then here this bottom part is also provided here, which is nothing but the sill. Okay, sill of the door. That part comes under frame, and these vertical members which you see are called as post. Okay, they are called as post. Okay, so this all these things make up your door frame, which is usually fixed in the wall, right? Your door frame is usually fixed in the wall. This part you can see is going into your wall. Right, this part is extended and it goes into your wall. Also, you have this particular hold fast, right? Hold fasts, which you can see over here. Hold fasts are provided, which anchor your frame into the wall. So all these things are part of the frame. Now coming to material calculation, what we I will tell you is the cross sections for different parts will be mentioned, right? Cross sections will be mentioned. You can see the cross sections are mentioned like this. Cross sections of your every element is mentioned. Right, you can see, you can read over here. So multiply the cross section by the length of the member. Multiply the cross section by the length of the member. You will get the quantity in cubic meters. Quantity in cubic meters, meter cube, because timber quantity we have to calculate in meter cube. Okay, so the cross section multiplied by the length of that particular member, you will give you the meter cube quantity of various elements you have to calculate in this particular fashion. So the cross section will be given. Length of the member you can read from the diagram or from the figure. You can read that length, and you can multiply to get the quantity, material quantity. Okay, so this particular procedure you have to follow for all the for all the elements of a door, or all the elements of a door. So the door height, you can see it is given as 2 meters from top to bottom. It is given as 2 meters total height. So if you minus this particular height of the horn, or height of this particular frame, you will get this height of the vertical post, right? Vertical post. So 22 meters, 2 meters minus 80 mm. It is not centimeters, it is 80 mm. Okay, it is not around 1 meters. 80 centimeters is around 1 meter, right? So it is not centimeter, it is in mm. So 2 meters minus 80 mm, that is 0.08, correct? 0.08, right? 80 mm or 0.8. 0.08. Okay, so 2 minus 0.08 will give you the height of this vertical post, or height of this particular shutter, door shutter, right? That is important. Then they have named the different parts of the door, you can see, and they have given the various names over here. Okay, so the bottom rail is where? The bottom rail is here. Bottom rail 2 in number, and bottom rail are 2 in number. This is the bottom rail. This is the locking rail, which is represented as LR, locking rail, where your locks are provided, and then you have your top rail, which is over here, which are 2 in number. Okay. And then you have frames, I have told you, and then we have panels, which is given as capital P. We can see panels are 4 in number. Panels are 4 in number, and then these are called as tiles, these vertical members of the door shutter, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 4 number of tiles, or the vertical number, which are vertical members, which are provided. Okay, and to these tiles your rails are attached, right? To these tiles your rails are attached, that is a top rail, locking rail, and bottom rail. They are attached to your tiles. So how many number of tiles? 4 number of tiles, 4 number of panels. Okay, so remember the number of panels that are required. All these numbers you have to remember, and you have to multiply to calculate the quantities. Okay, so the width of the total frame has been given to us, right? 1.1. The total width is also given, no problem. The height of the door is also given, and the cross sections are mentioned over here. You can read all the member, and their cross sections are given to us. Okay, so we can easily now calculate the wood quantity that is required, quantity of wood that is required. Okay, for the vertical post, right? The door frame, right? This is the door frame. I have told you the vertical post length we have to calculate. So it is 2.1 meters, 2.1 meter, including the 10 centimeter bearing in floor. Okay, so 10 centimeter is the bearing which you provide in the floor. So it goes inside your flooring to a depth of 10 centimeters. So 2.1 is the total length, right? Length of the head, you can calculate the total length of the head, at this particular head or horn, what we call. So here, considering some projections, right? 0.5 meters on either side. So projections, so length of this particular we have calculated, then length of the rail, so 1.1 is this particular base length, right? Width of the door, so 1.1, so 1.1 minus 2 into 0.08, 2 into 0.08 divided by 2. So length of one rail, so this particular width of a rail, you can calculate it easily, because all the dimensions are known. All the dimensions, this particular length of each rail, which is equal, right? All the rails are of equal length. So you can calculate 1.1 divided by 2, divided by, you can see the whole length is divided by 2, because we are considering half of the shutter. So 1.1 minus 2 into 0.08. Now what is this 0.08? 80 mm. What is this 80 mm? So you can see frame is 80 mm, frame is 80 mm minus this frame width, and this frame width. 2 into 0.08, frame width you have minus, so we are left out with this particular width. This width we are left out with. Okay. From this, if you minus this rail, if you minus this width of the stiles, right? We have 4 number of stiles, and the width of the stile is how much? 12 centimeter by 40 mm, 12 centimeters by 40 mm. So if you minus this width, you will be left out with the this particular rail length. Okay, so in this particular way, you can calculate all the length and all the dimensions of the required elements, all the required elements. You can calculate the length and cross sections are given. You can multiply and get the quantity in meter cube, right? You can go through this height of the panel, width of the panel, right? Height and width of these panels which are provided, height and width you can calculate easily, right? Panel thickness is given as 40 mm, okay, not the dimensions. Dimensions you need to calculate from the diagram. So all those things you can do. Next, moving on to this particular table, wood quantity, you can see wood quantity table is prepared over here. One extra table is to be prepared, right, wherein it gives you the length, breadth and the height of your length, breadth and the thickness, sorry, length, breadth and the thickness of your various elements of the door. So vertical post we have two in number, right? Two in number, length, breadth and dimension and the thickness. Then head and sill. I've told you in the shutter we have stiles that are four in number, and we have rails which are six in number, right? We have six number of rails if you recall, and panels are four in number. Here in this particular numerical, the panels are made up of timber. Okay, so we have considered it in this particular quantity, total quantity we have considered. Okay, in different doors, you might have the panels made up of glass, right? It can be made up of glass, and if it is made up of glass, you should not consider it in the wood quantity. You have to separately calculate and write it down separately as glass quantity. Okay, do not consider or add that in wood quantity. You have to add it, you have to keep it separate as glass quantity. Okay, that will come under glazed doors. Okay. Coming to rate analysis, so the height of the door, you can see it is 1.1 meter in width, and the height of the door is 2 meters. Height of the door is 2 meters. So the total square meter of the door is 1.1 into 2, that is 2.2 square meters, right? 2.2 square meters. Now, coming to materials, we have calculated the total quantity of wood that is required, that is 0.137 cubic meters. That is written over here, 0.137 cubic meters. Okay, multiply by the rate, you will get the amount. Okay, so to fix this particular door, we require some amount of attachments, right? Some amount of attachments we require, some hold fast we require, then we require some bolts, we require some nails, all those things we require. Hinges also are required, right, for fixing up your door. So all those materials are written down next. You can see brass hinges, right? We require hinges. So how many number of hinges? Six number of hinges we require per panel, three per panel, three, right? Top, bottom, and at the mid, we require three hinges per panel. So totally six number of hinges. What is this hall drop? What we call it is nothing but the lock, right? It is nothing but the lock, right? In this format which we have in our doors, right? So this is nothing but a lock, or what we call as kadi, right? That is nothing but hall drop. So this is your all drop which we require, right? One in number. So tower bolts, right? We have to provide this kind of bolts, right? At the top and at the bottom, right? Top and at the bottom. So tower bolts we require. Then brass handle also we require it. For the door we require handles. We require hold fast, right? How many number of hold fast? Six number of hold fast, and two number of handles. One on each side we require handle. Okay. Then door lock also we require one number of door lock and a door stopper. Okay. So if any other attachment is required, you can add over here. You can write down the rate of that, and then you can add it in the total amount. Okay. So a carpenter and a carpenter assistant. We require carpenter and we require carpenter's assistant over here. Don't write down mistri and head mason, all those things, because for woodwork we require carpenter. Okay, not labor, not other mistri and all. Okay, so keep that in mind. So we have learned how to calculate for a door. We have learned how to do the rate analysis and calculation of materials for the door. Similarly, if you have a glazed door, right? If you have a glazed door, I have told you what you have to do. Similarly, we can calculate using the same method, but instead of wood panels, we have these glass panels which are provided. Okay, these panels are made up of glass. So make sure you keep this glass panel quantity separately and do not add that in the woodwork quantity. Okay, so remaining things you can calculate similarly as we have done previously. You can calculate the length, breadth, and depth or the thickness of the members. All the members you have to write down, make a table, and then make the estimation. Right, we have to prepare this quantity of woodwork table for the quantity of woodwork. Similarly, for the quantity of your glass, quantity of the glass. Okay, so the width of the panel, height of the panel, and the total area of the panel that is required, total glass area of panels that is required. So multiplying by the number of panels, right? In the end, 6 number of panels are there. So the total glass quantity that is required is 0.4 square meters. Okay, glass quantity, we have to keep it in square meters. And the woodwork that you calculate is in cubic meters, Okay, then you can prepare this particular table, write down all the extra things that are required, that is hinges, bolts, then awl drop, then handles, all those things, hold fast and all those things you have to add. And then any other extra thing? No. Okay, so we can calculate and we can do the rate analysis and write down in the end rate per square meter, okay, very important. Then after we are done with that, with woodwork and glass work indoors and windows, right? Doors and windows. Next important thing we have to learn is for plumbing, that we need to do plumbing work and we need to analyze the rate for plumbing work. Okay, so usually plumbing work, you require pipes, right? You require pipes, and pipes are usually got in running meters, right? Running meters. Pipe are brought from the shop in terms of running meters. You go and order, or you go and tell them you want so many meter or so many length of pipes, right? And usually one pipe is 60 centimeters. One length of one pipe is 60 centimeters. And suppose now you want to do a work of 15 centimeters, 15 running meters. 15 running meters is the requirement, 15 running meters. And as I've told you, per meter length, per pipe is of 0.6 meter in length. 0.6 meter in length. So how many number of pipes are required? How many number of pipes? So 15 divided by the length of each pipe. 15 divided by the length of each pipe, that is 0.6, will give you the total number of pipes that are required. So 25 number of pipes are required for 15 running meter of work. 15 running meter of work, if you want to do, you require 25 number of pipes of 0.6 meter length each. Okay, so in this fashion, you can calculate the number of pipes that are required. Okay, so coming to the first example, wherein we are dealing with supplying, laying, and joining. Okay, joining of 100 mm dia pipes, 100 mm dia glazed stoneware pipes in cement mortar 1:1. Cement mortar 1:1. Okay. Now, length of each pipe, I have told you it. We have to consider 0.6 meters. Hence, you can calculate the number of joints or the number of pipes that are required. Okay, 25 number. Okay. Coming to material calculation, we have to write down the number of pipes that are required, that is 25 number of pipes, and then keep some allowance for breakages. For breakages, that is 5% of the cost we will keep as lump sum for breakages. Okay. Now we require cement for joining of these stone pipes, right? Stoneware pipes. We require cement and we require mortar that is to be prepared with this cement. So we shall keep it as one bag, right? One bag of cement, that is 0.66. You can keep it as one bag, no problem. So one bag of cement is required, and sand that is required is 0.22 cubic meters, because the cement mortar is 1:1. Okay, it is 1:1. So the quantity of cement that is required is the same quantity of sand that is required. Okay, now to join these particular pipes, we are using cement mortar. Okay, along with that, we need to have this particular tubes which we use so that your joints are not leaking, right? We have to make sure that they are watertight and they are not leaking. So we have to provide this gasket which we call as add gasket which you have to provide. So make sure you add this particular gasket in your quantity calculation. So it is taken as 0.1 kg per joint, 0.1 kg per joint. So we have 25 number of joints. So 0.1 into 25. So we'll get it as 2.5 kg, 2.5 kg. Okay, so if you want to know what is this gasket, it is nothing but like this. It is like a this particular steel plate, right, which you have in your nut and bolt where you provide, right. So it is of the same diameter like that of your pipe, right, which you attach over here, and then you join two pipes so that your water, it is watertight and it is not leaking. So this is your water gasket which you have to provide. Then a labor, we require mason and a helper, right? We are going to lay your pipe, and then we are going to join those pipes using cement mortar. So required mason and one helper. So this is for plumbing work. This is for plumbing work. Then coming to the next thing. Okay, so important thing, remember here we are calculating in running meter, right? We are calculating in running meter. So make sure you divide it by 15, because initially we have assumed that 15 running meter is the work that we need to do. 15, 1, 5. Okay, 15. You can take it as 10 running meters, you can take it as 20 running meters, but if you take it as 15, the number of pipes, that is 25 number of joints or 25 number of pipes, that will come in whole numbers, or it will come in decimal points if you take it as any other number. Okay, so we have taken it as 15. You can assume any other number, no problem. Okay, then coming to this particular fixing and fitting of Indian type water closet. Indian type water closet we are concerned with, right? If you want to fix and you have to fit your Indian water closet. Okay, so usually we take it as one unit. Okay, one unit, that is one water closet of Indian type we have to fit. So what we need one water closet, that one Indian type water closet we need. Then we need a P trap. We require one P trap. What is P trap? I hope you remember what is a P trap. This is the P trap which you provide right below your Indian type water closet. This is the P trap or the pipe which you provide, which then goes to your drain, right? So this is the P trap which we require. Then some fixtures we require, right? We require one flushing system we require. So all those things are then included, right? Flushing system is along with fittings, we require one number. Then we require various other things for fixing and setting and fixing and fitting your Indian type water closet. So all those things are included over here, and then the rate per item is multiplied to get the amount. Okay. In this particular work, you require plumber, you require mason, and you require one helper, right? Plumber for all the pipe fittings and fitting of your water closet, and mason for your joining of your various joints, right? So we require sand and we require cement, we require mortar. So we require one mason and we require a helper for them. Okay, so once you calculate the total quantity, that is 3,137. So it is the same thing, right? Because we are calculating in units, so no need to divide by anything. So what is the grand total is the total answer that you have to write. Okay, so because it will become divided by 1, hence it will be the same thing. Okay, so all these things are minor quantities, right? No need to worry. So in exam, these are rarely asked. Okay, so these are minor and not very important quantities. Yeah, the starting ones which we have studied up till cement plastering are very important. After those, door and window is also important. But these plumbing works and all these things are not very important. But you need to understand and need to learn. Hence, we are doing this analysis of rates of these minor works. Okay. Now, next, after your Indian type water closet, we will learn the rate analysis for a wash basin. Wash basin. Okay. So we require one wash basin, right? One number of wash basin and one bracket to fit this particular basin into your wall, right? So we require one CI bracket. Okay. So this is your wash basin which we have. We require one tap. We require a tap. We require one bracket, right, which I have drawn over here so that you can fix your particular basin to your wall, right? Then you require one waste pipe. You require one waste pipe so that the water from the basin can get into the drain, right? So we require one waste pipe. So similarly, many other fixtures are required which we need to include, right? Which you need to include. Now let us check in detail what are all those things that are required. Okay. So here we need one tap, right? One tap, I've told you one tap is required, no problem. So you can see the tap rate that they have taken is 200. And if you have been to the market, you might be knowing that the tap rate are not 200, that they are almost 5 times this particular rate, right? Can anyone tell me the rate of one steel tap of any famous company? It is above 1,000, right? Above 1,000. If you want to fix any taps of any nice company, it is going above 1,000. So these rates are very old. So make sure you use the latest rates from the market. Then 32 dia rubber plugs with brass chain. All these fixtures are required for fitting your taps, right? Fixing your taps, fixing your basin. All these things are required. I have told you one pipe is required. Brass waste pipe is required, and then some cement, sand, and sundries are also to be included, right? To fix your particular wall, to fix your cement, to fix your bracket into your wall, you require mortar. Okay, so for that consideration has been taken. All those considerations have to be done, and then you require one plumber, one mason, and one helper. Okay, so I have given you a brief idea what all are to be included in your rate analysis of one unit of a wash basin that you need to fix. Okay, so these are very minor quantities. You can read in detail later on for detailed understanding. Okay, now coming to one more, that is your European type or your Western type water closet, what we call, right? Western water closet with pan and lid. Okay, no problem. We have studied Indian. Now this is what? This is Western type of water closet. So the same quantity, same number, same type procedure you have to follow, wherein one number of water closet is required. Then one P trap is required, and then one bracket is required to fix your water closet in place. Okay, then we require some pipes. We require a flush, right? Flushing system we require, then flush pipe and all those things, and some fixtures are also required. Okay, so make sure you consider all those things. And if you see the rate of one water closet, is this the same rate in market, 1050? Is it around this or is it higher? Rate of one water closet. If you go for Hindware, if you go for Jaguar, various other companies are there, or Serra, right? Many companies are there. Can you tell me any rate of a water closet, Western type of water closet? Is it nearby to this particular rate or is it higher? If anyone knows the market rate of a water closet, Western water closet. It is very high. It is not around 1,000. It is going up to 4,000, 5,000, right? So these are very old rates. Make sure you do not use these old rates. Make sure you use the rates which are prevailing in your area. Okay, no problem. Similarly, you can calculate the remaining things, and we can make the rate analysis and write down the per unit rate of fixing one Western type of water closet. Okay, so this is regarding plumbing. Then, okay, so these are very minor things. These will not be asked in your exam, right? Providing and fixing white glazed vitreous flat china, flat back or wall corner type lipped. Okay, this is a basin, urinal basin. Okay, no problem. All these things are very minor. These are not asked in your exam. So what as I've told you, the main thing that we have to learn is the initial rate analysis, which we have done up to doors and windows, right? Up to doors and windows. Up to there, your important topics are covered. After that, your painting. Then what we have dealt after that, we have dealt with painting. We have dealt with plumbing work, right? Plumbing work. Those are minor things of minor item works. So those are not very important with respect to your exam, but you need to know how all those things are to be done. So we have covered majority of your item of works that are in a residential building. right? All of the major item of works we have covered. We have learned the various specifications. We have learned the specifications of various item of works. Then we have learned how to analyze the various item of works and prepare the item rate, right? Per item rate, or that is in rate per square meter, or rate per cubic meter, or rate per unit. We have learned how to do that, and and with this we have finished with the third module. We are done with the third module. Okay, and in the end, a very good table is provided for better understanding. You can see a summary is given to us, wherein the item and the quantity, a brief quantity that the assumption that you have to make, right? That is given, right? Item of work and the quantity that you have to assume initially, that we assume, right? That is given, and the material required are given to us briefly. Okay, so that we have a brief idea in our head, so that we can easily remember and write down in the exam. So this summary table of summary is very important. You can go through this after you have learned, after you have studied all the specification and analysis. This table is very helpful for remembering. Okay. Then a few important questions regarding this particular module are given. You can go through this, right? You can go through, you can study, and if you have any doubts in any of the calculation or any of the specification, you can let me know. So with this, we are done with analysis of rates, and hence we are done with module number 3, wherein we have learned specifications first, specifications of various items of works, and then we have learned analysis of rates. So specification plus analysis of rates is what comprises of your module number 3. Okay, so with this, I think we have covered, I think 10 classes we have done for module number 3. We have done proper justice with this particular module, and we have covered in detail. Okay, so I hope you have understood, and you have learned many new things, and many items of works, how calculation is done, and how they have to be executed in the field. So this particular module is very important if you want to practice in field. Okay, so you have to be thorough with specification. That is how you have to how the work has to be carried out in the field, very important, and how you have to analyze the particular rate of every item of work. So you have to be very what you call, you have to be very well known, you have to be very well versed with the various rates of various item of works, right? What is the prevailing rate in your area of excavation? What is the prevailing rate of flooring? What is the per square meter of plastering that is in your area? You have to be very well versed with this particular rates. Okay, and then specification you must be knowing, and so that you can properly execute all this particular item of works in the field. Okay, so this particular module is very important. Make sure you go through this, read every detail, and study in detail, and you remember all these items of works. Okay, so with this, we have finished with the third module. And if you have any feedback to give regarding the third module, you can provide feedback. You can let me know any opinions, any suggestions, how and what you have understood, and whether we are going fine. So, shall we start with the fourth module, that is contract management, contracts management and tendering. So that is your fourth module. So I think we have 1 more hour. We shall continue with the fourth module now. If you need a break, you can let me know, or else we shall continue, and we shall head on into your fourth module. Okay, so let me just share the fourth module with you, and we shall start with the fourth module, that is contract management and tendering. Okay, regarding tendering and its process, we have to learn what is contract management, what is tendering, what is the process of tendering, and how it has to be done. All the various aspects and various elements of contracts and tendering. Okay, so if you need a break, please let me know, or I shall continue with the fourth module. No problem. Are you there? Are you following? Are you still there with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Ninganna, Krishna.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. I hope you are still there with me and listening. Then we have with us, we have Jeevan. Are you there, Jeevan? Harsh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yes,
Then,
sir. Continue.
okay, okay, okay. Balu Patil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. He's just checking. Just checking. Okay, so let me just share the screen and I shall start with the fourth module. So now the fourth module is also theory. Okay, it is entire theory. We shall learn what is meant by contract, what is tendering, and what is the process that is in tendering. Okay, so I hope I think you are able to see the screen, right? Wherein I have written module 4. So this is
Yes, sir.
okay, okay. Contract management and tendering and its process. Okay. So we shall first learn what do you mean by contract? What is meant by contract? Do you know what is meant by a contract? In general terms, can you try to answer in your own words? Not in technical, not in terms of civil. In any general terms, can you tell me what is a contract? General, what is contract, or what is meant by an agreement? So is contract made between two person or a single person or two or more people? Contract has to be made between two parties, right? A contract has to be made between two parties, wherein one is the promiser and the second is the promisee, correct? The one who gives you the promise or who tells you the offer is called the promiser, who gives you the offer, and who accepts the offer is the promisee. Okay, so suppose now you are two friends, Ramesh and Suresh. You are two friends. So Ramesh tells Suresh that if you do some work for me, right, I will give you some reward. Right. So Ramesh is promising Suresh that he will give him some reward. So that is what is called. So Ramesh is the promiser. That is friend number one, and the friend number two who is accepting his offer, right? Who is accepting the offer for some reward, right? Is called the promisee. Okay, so the now the work that the friend number one can give to friend number two, that the promiser can give to promisee, is any work for any kind of reward, right? So you can tell that if you go to the shop and if you buy some groceries for me, right, groceries, and in turn you can take some money for yourself, right? You can uh, uh, take some profit, you can make some profit, you can give me some, you can buy some groceries, and in terms I will pay you for that particular work, right? So this is in general terms, right? So there is one promiser who promises the second party that if you do some work from me, that I will give you some reward, right? So there is one promise in between these two. There will be some promise which is made between these two parties, right, between these two friends. So this is what is called casual agreement, right, between two friends. Now, the important thing here is when it becomes an agreement, when this promise becomes an agreement. When does a promise become an agreement? Suppose your friend number one gives an offer that if you do certain kind of work, I will give you an award. I will give you an award for doing that work for me, right? So that is one proposal, or that is one offer that is made by the promiser. And once that offer is accepted, it is accepted by the promisee, or it is accepted by the second person who is going to do the work, right? It is accepted, and that acceptance is told to the promiser, right? It is acknowledged by both the parties that the offer or the proposal has been accepted, that is to be known by both the parties. It is accepted and it is acknowledged by both the friends, right? Ramesh and Suresh, both of them have acknowledged that this promise has been accepted by both of them for the particular reward and for the particular amount, for the particular work that you are going to do. Okay. So if it is agreed and if it is acknowledged by both of them, then it becomes an agreement. Okay, only then it becomes an agreement. Okay, agreement, what we call as, after it has been acknowledged and it is accepted by both the parties, a promise or the particular offer becomes an agreement. Okay, so now let us think of a situation wherein your first friend number one, Ramesh, has offered a particular proposal to friend number two, that is Suresh. Ramesh has given an offer to Suresh that if you do some work for me, I will pay you 100 rupees in turn. In return, I will give you an award. I will give you a reward of 100 rupees if you do that work for me. Okay, if you go to shop and buy something and give it to me, I will give you 100 rupees commission on top of that. Okay. Now Ramesh has promised, right? And Suresh, the second friend, has agreed. The promiser has agreed. The agreement is made between them, between both of them. And Suresh goes to the shop, buys whatever is required, and gives it to promiser, that is Ramesh. He gives it to Ramesh. Now, Ramesh, what he does is, after getting whatever the work is done, Ramesh does not give the reward to the second friend. He does not give the reward that was agreed upon. Now, in this particular situation, what happens? Suresh, your second friend who has done the work, right? He will get angry. He will tell that he will do a complaint. He will sue you in court, right? And because he has not given you, because he has not given him the reward, right? The promiser has not kept his agreement and has not given you the reward, right? So what they will do, they will go and complain. So will this complaint be taken by the police if you go and tell that he had agreed to pay me 100 for this particular work and he has not paid? Now you please take him into custody and please punish him. Will the police agree? No, because it is just because they have not written it down, because it is not it is just spoken by mouth and it is agreed upon, right? It is not written down, it is not considered by the police, right? Because it is just orally agreed upon, because it is not under any framework, it is not under any law. So it is not agreed, it is not considered, your complaint will not be considered, it will be considered a void agreement, right? It will be considered a void because it is not legally bound. The agreement which was made between them two is not legally bound, hence it is not enforced by any law. Okay, hence it is not enforced by any law. So that particular agreement which was not followed by the promisee, which was not followed by the promiser, cannot be punished if he is not giving the promisee the award for which the promisee had done the work for. Hence, this whatever agreement what you do, whatever agreement, right? Hence, whatever the agreement what these two person or the both these parties do has to be kept, has to be brought under some legal framework, right? Has to be brought under some legal framework. So, so that it can be enforced by law, and if any of the parties do not perform as per the agreement, and any reward which was promised is not given, can be made punishable by offense, right? Not following the agreement as per the given document, as per whatever the promises made, if it is not followed by any of the parties, they can be punished. You can raise a complaint within the legal framework. So what we need to do, this particular agreement, we need to bring it under a legal framework so that the judicial laws are applicable. And what we do is, we prepare a document of agreement. This particular agreement which was made orally, right, which was made by orally, that has to be written down and made into a document format. Right, this agreement of document has to be prepared, and this document which you prepare, right, document of agreement which you prepare, is nothing but called as contract. It is nothing but contract document, what we call as, right, contract document. So the agreement which is made between two parties, that is the promisor and the promisee. Promisor and the promisee, the agreement that is made, or the promise that is made, or the proposal that is made between them, and the agreement, after agreement of this particular promise, the agreement is done, then that is brought under legal framework and written down into a document. This document is called as contract document. Okay, so I hope you have understood what is meant by a contract document and what is meant by contracting. Okay, so contract is what is enforced by law. Contract is enforced by law. It is recognized legitimate, right? It is like recognized by the judicial system. And if it is broken, if it is changed, if it is not properly followed, it is punishable by law. It is punishable by law. You will be sued, you will be punished, you will have to give fines, and you will have to be punished for that breaking that particular contract. Okay, so this is what is I have explained generally what is meant by contract and the process of contract that is made between two parties, that is promisor and promisee. Okay, so I hope the general explanation of contract is clear. Is it clear, guys? Can you let me know if you have understood what is meant by contract and contract document? Arthaitri, if you have understood, please raise your hand and let me know that you have understood, so that I can have a check those who are active and those who are not. Please raise your hand and let me know that you have understood or not. Please raise your hand so that I can check who all are active in the class. Everyone, please raise your hand. Let me check all those who are active. Okay, okay, you can lower your hand, no problem. Okay, now once we have understood what is contract, let us have an example of civil engineering. Let us have an example of civil engineering wherein the government is the promisor. Government is the promisor, and government says that the government wants to build a road of 1 kilometer, of certain specifications and of a certain rate. Okay, so the government has some funds, and the government wants to build a road of 1 kilometer of certain specification. So the government gives contract to what? Gives a contract to the contractor or the builder who is going to build the road. So this is given to the contractor who will build the road for the government. Okay, so this is so the contractor is the promisee, and the government is the promisor, right? The government is the promisor and the contractor is the promisee. Okay, so this is regarding how and who are the promisor and who are called the promisee. So in a contract, right? In a contract, we have a promisor, we have a promisee. We have a promisor, we have a promisee, and we have a promise, or what we call as an agreement. Okay, the promise or the proposal becomes an agreement after it is accepted by both of them, right? It is accepted by the government, it is accepted by the contractor, that the contractor and the government, that this particular road will be built by this particular specifications, by using these particular rates of materials and within this stipulated time. Okay, and then once both of them have agreed upon that, it becomes an agreement, and when that is made into a document and it is legally bound, enforceable by law, it will be termed as a contract. Okay, and if any of them do not follow this particular contract, then they will be punishable by law, or they will be sued. They will have to pay fines. Okay. Next, after we have understood regarding contract, we have to learn the various stages of execution, stages of execution of works. Okay. So now suppose you are a part of a company, and you want your company is is regarding building works. Okay, it is regarding building residential building construction. Right, residential building construction firm you have, and you are part of that particular firm. Now there is one proposal, and you have to build a particular residential building now, per se a particular apartment building that you are that it is proposed, and that is to be built. So now what you do, you prepare that particular plan, how it has to build, what are the details, all the details you prepare, and what you do, you go to the higher authority for approval. You go for the higher authority for approval. There will be one boss, there will be one boss, there will be one higher authority above you always, and that particular person or that particular authority has to approve for this particular amount of this particular work. Right, so that is known as administrative approval, getting the administrative approval from the higher authority. Right, so it is a formal acceptance of work, and so it is just an permission that you have to take. Right, permission for that to take up that particular work. So this is the first stage, that is administrative approval that you have to take of the higher authority or of the concerned authority you have to take, okay, before taking up the work. Okay. After that, you have to take the engineer's approval under the technical sanction. Engineer's approval, wherein the engineers check whether the designs are proper, all the designs are correct, right? Designs are properly sound. They are the estimates that are given are correct. All the estimates, all the designs, all the calculations, all the drawings, all these things have to be correct. They have to be checked by the engineers, and if found correct, the technical sanction or the technical approval will be given. Okay, so this is basically our department, civil engineers, wherein we deal with the technical sanctions. Okay, once that engineers give approval, then you have to check whether we have the budget, we have the money with us for taking up this project, right? Whether we have the funds, we have the proper finance to take up this particular project. So that particular checking will be done by the financial department, right? And if found proper, if found it is profitable, that particular construction, if it is profitable, if we have the budget, if we have the funds, and if it is fine, all the things, then the financial department will give the expenditure sanction, right? The second one, which you can see here, is given by the financial department or the finance department. It is also called as the financial approval. Okay, expenditure sanction or financial approval. Okay, so after this, there is one more thing called as appropriation or reappropriation of funds. We will learn it later on when we move on to appropriation and reappropriation. Okay, so now suppose there is one client. There is one client who, or a company or an IT company, who wants to build a new office for them, right? A client or a IT company or any company who wants to build for themselves an office, right? So what they will do is they will, because they do not have the knowledge of construction, they do not have the resources, they do not have the manpower, or they do not have the infrastructure for making this happen. They have only the money. They can only finance, right? They have the money to build this particular office building that they want, and they have the money, but they do not have any knowledge. They are an IT firm. So what they will do, they will give the contract for building this particular office building to a builder, right? They will give this contract to a contractor, right? So before they give a contract to this to build this particular building, they have to take the administrative approval, right, of the higher authority, of the CEO of the company or the chairman or the board of the company. They have to take the administrative approval that it is required, that the building is required. It is beneficial to the particular company, that they require this particular building to be built, and they have to take the permission from the higher authority, right? And then they have to take the financial department approval, right? The expenditure sanction, that whether they will check whether they have the funds with them, right? All those things they will check, whether it is feasible now, or whether it is whether they can build it later on, because funds are lesser now, right? Depends upon the financial condition of the company. Then after that is done, the technical sanction is being done by the contractor, right? The technical sanction, the engineer takes up the work, they give the plan, they prepare the plan, the detailed drawing, they do the design, right? They do the calculations, and that is to be checked by the engineer, and then it is given to the contractor for building. Okay, so once all these approvals are done, only then the work is taken up for construction. Okay, so now I hope you have understood the stages of execution of work. Okay, so all these approvals are required, and this reappropriation and appropriation of funds is mainly regarding governmental works. Okay, it is mainly regarding governmental works. So we will get to that later on as we head into that section. So now understanding administrative approval in detail. Now we will learn this particular thing in detail, administrative approval or sanction, okay, in detail. So as I've told you, it is nothing but a formal acceptance of the proposed work or project, right? So it is like getting permission from the higher authority. It denotes the formal acceptance that we can take up this particular work as it is beneficiary, as it is okay, as it is useful, and we can go forward by this particular project. Okay, it is given, permission is given by the competent authority, right? It is just the administrative approval, not any technical, not any financial. Okay, it is just like taking a permission for the for going forward with this project. Okay, now coming to governmental works, that is mainly regarding the PWD department. PWD department, what do you mean by PWD? It is the Public Works Department, right? Public Works Department, wherein they take up governmental construction work. Whatever the government has to construct, it is done by the PWD department, right? The government, whatever they need to construct, like a bus stop, right? Any road, like any sanitary or any work that is related to government, that has to be taken up by this particular department, PWD. Okay. So in PWD, a proposal is sent by a contractor. Now, suppose a PWD work has to be done. Suppose a road work is to be done of so many kilometers of a specific specification, right? Of a specific specification using a specific material and a specific length within the stipulated time. So a contractor will give a proposal that I will do this work for you, and I will take certain amount of percentage as profit. Okay. So this particular proposal is checked by the PWD department. That proposal is checked by the PWD department. It is checked for its requirements, and it is checked whether it is proper, and it is checked by the administrative authority. And then once it is done, and if it is found proper, all of the things that are found proper, right? And if you have funds for that particular thing, then that proposal is put into work. Okay, after the engineering department, after all the approvals are done, only then the work is taken. And the next thing, that is after the administrative sanction, right? After the administrative sanction, the engineering department starts its work. Engineering department starts its work, and they start to prepare the detailed drawings. They start to prepare the design. That they do the design, they do the calculations, they prepare the detailed drawings. Okay, detailed drawings, detailed plans, and the detailed estimates that are required after this administrative sanction is done. Okay, after this is done. Okay. Now, once the administrative sanction is done, I've told you we need to take the approval of the financial department. We need to take the approval of the expenditure that is done. Okay, expenditure sanction is to be taken, or the expenditure approval is to be taken. Okay, so here in the governmental works, especially in the governmental works, so yearly we have a yearly budget, right? We have a yearly budget which is proposed, right? Yearly budget of the country, and in that particular budget we have some section kept out for construction, right? In that particular budget we have some section which is kept for construction. Okay, so this construction work has many types under it, right? We have road work, right? Infrastructural work. Then we have water resource department, right? Water resource department, which takes care of dams, canals, aqueducts, all those water related construction. And then we have PWD department, right? Which takes up your water public work department, it takes up your infrastructural work, right? So these funds are again diverted to these particular departments, right? Then after that, suppose now we are dealing with this PWD. Okay, so some certain amount of funds have been allotted to the PWD department. Now what they will do is, before taking up any work, any proposal, what they will do, they will check for any incomplete work or any pending work which has extended its timeline. So what they will do is, first they will give priority to this incomplete work. They will allot funds to this incomplete work and make sure this is completed. Then after they have allotted this, then they will give you the proposal or the funds that is for new proposals. They will give funds or they will give approval for new work. Okay, they will check what is the funds that are left over and how much can be allotted for the new proposal of work. Okay, so this is the process of the expenditure sanction or the expenditure approval which is given by the financial department. Now, suppose they have sanctioned us an amount of 30 crores for a road, right? Suppose they have allotted us a sanction of 30 crores for a road work, Now, expenditure, suppose this particular allotment which is done, and the actual expenditure that is happening is exceeding 30 crores. It has exceeded 30 crores. What? The actual expenditure on the field. Allotment is 30 crores, but but the expenditure has crossed 30 crores and it is incomplete. Still, it is incomplete, right? So it needs more funds. For the completion of this particular work. Okay. The first case, what I've told you, it has completed. The work has been completed, but it has crossed the stipulated budget or the stipulated amount that was given to it, right? And the second thing is, the work is incomplete. And it needs more funds to be completed. Okay, in these two conditions, what we need to do is, we need to go for a revised sanction to the financial department again. We need to go for a revised sanction whenever your work is crossing the allotted funds, or whenever your work is incomplete and it needs more funds for completion, right? Then we need to do a revised sanction we need to give, and we need to take one more approval. Once more, we have to take the approval of the financial department. So that is known as a revised sanction, which we need to do. Okay, so you can read here, a revised expenditure sanction is to be taken. Okay, and when it has to be taken, it has various sanctions have to be taken depending upon how much it has exceeded, and suppose it has exceeded 10% of the initial fund, or it has exceeded by 5% of the initial fund, then there are various categories and various different types of revised expenditure depending upon the condition. 5%, 10%, depending upon the project, this revised expenditure sanction has to be done. Right, so you can go through this particular paragraph. It will be clear when your revised sanction has to be taken up. Okay, so then moving on to revised, once your financial approval is given, then technical sanction, it is to be given by the engineer, right? So the detailed estimate, the design calculation, the quantity of work, right? Quantities, rate and cost, all of these are checked by the engineering department. All of these are checked by the engineering department, and if all of these are proper, right? All of these are proper, or the data is all the calculation is correct, all the designs are correct, only then the work can be taken into, and only then the work can be started up. Only the work can be started in your field. Okay, the technical sanction is very important because that is done by the engineering department, and if any design is flawed, if any calculation is wrong, it will cause a failure, which will in turn lead in loss of money and loss of life. Okay, if the financial sanction, if they give financial sanction, if there is any error in that, then it will not cause much problem. But if there is any problem in the design, if there is any problem in the calculation, and if there is error, and if it is not checked properly by the engineers, then it will cause failure, and which will, I have told you, it will cause loss of life and loss of money. Okay, so this technical sanction is also very important. Okay, so regarding reappropriation and appropriation, we will cover this in the next class. Okay, reappropriation and appropriation we will cover in the next class. So I hope you have understood what is meant by contract, what is meant by contract, what are the various stages of execution of work, and the various approvals that are need to be taken up before we start with any work. Okay, so we have studied administrative approval, we have learnt expenditure approval or financial approval, and then technical sanction. We have studied these three. The last one, that is appropriation or reappropriation of funds, we will study in the next class. Okay, is it fine? Have you understood today's session of fourth module? I hope you have understood. I hope it is, the concept is clear. So with this, we have to stop today over here. So you can give your attendance. You can give your attendance now. You can give your attendance. Make sure you give your attendance before leaving the session. Please give your attendance and wait. Do not leave the session. I have a few instructions to give before you leave. Has everyone given their attendance? I hope everyone has given. Can we stop the recording here? Please give your attendance quickly. Give your attendance and wait. Do not leave the session.